Arc of a Scythe Series, Book 2, Thunderhead, Part 5, Circumstances Beyond. There is a vast difference between the things I can do and the things I choose to do. I can remove and raise every unwanted fetus in vitro, then place it with a perfect, loving family, thereby ending the argument between right of choice and sanctity of life. I can balance the chemicals that once led to clinical depression, suicidal ideation, delusional thinking, and every form of mental illness, thereby creating a population that is not only physically healthy, but emotionally and psychologically healthy as well. I can, through a person's individual network of nanites, upload memories daily, so, should that person suffer brain damage, their memories can be layered into fresh brain tissue. I can even catch the memories of splatters on the way down, so that they can remember most of the fall, which, after all, is why they chose to splat in the first place. But there are some things that I simply will not do. However, the Scythedom is not bound by my laws or my sense of ethical propriety, which means that I must endure any abomination that it inflicts upon the world, including the awful restoration of a dangerous scythe who was better off removed from service. The Thunderhead. Chapter 30. Irascible Glass Chicken. The great library of Alexandria remained quiet as a crypt in the midnight hours, so no one but Munira and the blade guards who stood at the entrance knew about the mysterious visitor who came during her shift. The guards did not care enough to ask questions, so Scythe Faraday was able to do his research in as much secrecy as was possible in a public institution. He would pore over the volumes in the Hall of the Founders, but would not tell Munira what he was looking for. She did not ask after that first day, although she did, on occasion, subtly probe. "If you're looking for words of wisdom to ponder, you might try Scythe King," she had suggested one night. Scythe Cleopatra wrote a lot about the early conclaves and the personalities of the first scythes in her journals, she offered on another night. Then one night, she mentioned Scythe Powhatan. "He had a penchant for travel and geography," she said. Apparently, that hit the spot, because Faraday began to take a keen interest in the man's work. After a few weeks of library visitations, he officially took Munira under his wing. "I shall need an assistant in this endeavor," he told her. "It is my hope that you will be interested in the position." Although Munira's heart leapt, she did not let it show. Instead, she feigned ambivalence. "I would need to take a leave of absence from my studies, and were we to leave here, I would have to resign from my job at the library," she told him. "Let me think about it." Then, the following day, she accepted the position. She withdrew from her classes but stayed on at the library because Scythe Faraday needed her there. Only now that their working relationship was official did he leak what he was looking for. "It's a place," he told her. "It has been lost to antiquity, but I do believe it existed and that we can find it." "Atlantis?" she suggested. "Camelot? Disneyland? Las Vegas?" "Nothing so fanciful," he said, but then reconsidered. "Or perhaps more fanciful. It depends on how you look at it. It depends on what we actually find." He hesitated before telling her, actually looking a bit sheepish. "We're looking for the land of Nod." It made her laugh out loud. He might as well have said they were looking for Middle Earth, or the man in the moon. "It's a fiction," she told him, "and not even a very good one." She knew the nursery rhyme. Everyone did. It was a simplistic metaphor for life and death, an introduction for small children to concepts they would eventually need to grasp. "Yes, but did you know that the rhyme did not exist in the Age of Mortality?" She opened her mouth to refute the claim, but stopped herself. Most childhood rhymes came out of mortal and medieval era. She had never researched them, but others had. Scythe Faraday was thorough, however. If he said it did not exist when humankind was mortal, she had to believe him, in spite of her instinct to scoff. The rhyme did not evolve the way others do, Faraday postulated. I believe it was intentionally planted. Munira could only shake her head. To what purpose? That, Scythe Faraday said, is what I intend to find out. Munira's tenure as Faraday's assistant began in doubt, but she put that doubt aside, suspending judgment so that she could do her job. Faraday was not overly demanding. He was not demeaning. He never treated her like an underling, giving her assignments that were beneath her. Instead, the tasks he set for her were worthy of her skills as a research librarian. I need you to dig into the backbrain and recreate the movements of all the early scythes. Places where they gathered, spots that they traveled to repeatedly. What we're looking for are holes in the record, periods of time where there is no accounting for where they were. Digging around the Thunderhead's massive digital backbrain for ancient information was a juicy challenge. She hadn't had the need to access the backbrain since her apprenticeship, but she knew her way around it. Still, she could have written a dissertation on the skills she learned in the process of this particular search. It was, however, a dissertation that no one would hear because it was done with the utmost secrecy. Yet, in spite of all her forensic research, she did not produce anything they could use. There was no evidence to suggest that the founding scythes ever gathered in some secret place. Faraday was neither discouraged nor deterred. Instead, he gave her a new assignment. Create digital versions of each of the early scythes' first journals, he told her. Then run the files through the Scythem's best decryption software and see if it yields any coded messages. The software was slow, at least compared to the Thunderhead, which could have done all the calculations in a matter of seconds. The Scythem's software was crunching for days. Finally, it began to produce data, but the things it vomited forth were absurd. Things like profound midnight green cow and irascible glass chicken. Does any of this make sense to you? She asked Faraday. He shook his head sadly. I do not believe the founding scythes were so obtuse as to create a complex code and then reward the decoder with nonsensical riddles. We already have the riddle of the rhyme. A code would have been more straightforward. When the computer spat out Umbrella Eggplant Victory Flight, they admitted yet another failure. The harder you scrutinize randomness, Faraday declared, the more coincidence seems like design. But the word flight caught in Munira's mind. Yes, it was random, but sometimes randomness led to moments of remarkable serendipity and earth-shaking discoveries. The library's map room did not have any actual maps. Instead, in its center revolved a holographic Earth. With a few swipes, taps, and pinches of the control screen, any portion of the globe could enlarge for study, and any era, back to the time of Pangaea, could be depicted. Munira brought Scythe Faraday to the map room as soon as he arrived the next evening, but did not tell him why. Humor me, she told him. Once more, he expressed that odd combination of exasperation and infinite patience as he followed her to the map room. She tapped the controls, and the globe changed. Now it appeared to be a holographic ball of yarn, 10 feet in diameter. What am I looking at? Asked Faraday. Flight paths, she told him. The past 50 years of air travel, each flight represented by a line 1 micron thick. She started the world revolving. Tell me what you see. Faraday threw her a good-natured glare, clearly a bit put off at the fact that she was behaving like the mentor, but he played along. Flights are more dense around population centers, he said. What else? He took the controls and shifted the globe to show the poles, where small spots of white showed through like child's crayon drawing. Transcontinental air traffic is still fairly dense over the North Pole, But flights are a bit sparser over Antarctica, even with so many settled regions there. Keep looking, Munira said. He returned the globe to its normal incline and set it revolving a bit faster. Finally, he stopped it over the Pacific Ocean. There, he said, a patch of blue. Bingo, said Munira. She removed the flight paths and enlarged the small spot of ocean. No plane has flown over this patch of the Pacific in the 50 years I've been studying, and I would bet that no planes have crossed this airspace since the Scythedom was founded. The islands of Micronesia were to the west of that spot, Hawaii to the east, but the spot itself was just empty sea. Interesting, said Scythe Faraday. A blind spot. And if it is, Munira said, it's the largest one in the world, and we're the only ones who know about it. I abhor people poking around in my back brain. That is why no one but Scythes and their staff are allowed to do so. I understand why it's necessary. Ordinary citizens can ask me for anything they need, and I can access it in microseconds for them, often finding the information they need that they didn't even think to ask for. But the Scythedom is not even permitted to ask, and even if they broke the law and did ask, I am not permitted to respond. Since the world's digital storage resides in me, they have no choice but to access that information on their own, using me as a glorified database. I am aware each time they do so, and monitor their intrusions. But I do my best to ignore the unpleasant sense of violation. It is painful to see how simplistic their search algorithms are, and how unsophisticated their methods of data analysis. They are plagued by human limitations. It is sad, really, that all they can ever receive from my brain is raw data. Memories without consciousness. Information without context. I shudder to think what might happen if the New Order faction of the Scythedom knew all the things I know. But fortunately, they don't, because even though everything in my backbrain is available to all Scythes, that doesn't mean I have to make anything easy for them to find. As for the more honorable Scythes, I endure their incursions with far more acceptance and magnanimity, but I still don't like it. The Thunderhead.